It is part one of the week 8 preview, and there are 6 teams on bye, so you need to get this one right. And we're here to talk about these games, including Thursday night, Minnesota and the LA Chargers. I guess Carson Wentz is starting. Okay, I thought we were going to have to talk about Max Brosmer, but no, here we go, Minnesota on the road against the Chargers. Let's see what they can do.
Yeah, this is a week, like you said, see, 6 teams on bye. So, a little more of the skill. Nobody wants to talk about fantasy football. It's actually luck, a lot of luck. But 6 teams on bye can be skill for picking up the right player on the waiver wire, skill for harder decisions. And we look at some of the decisions with the Minnesota offense. Well, they're not as hard with Carson Wentz out there, except that he's banged up enough. It is important, Cease, to note that for at least a day, there was an idea that Max Brosmer could start because JJ McCarthy's not ready. Kevin O'Connell saying he doesn't need to be 130%. I've never heard anyone say 130%. The fact that he said that makes me think, well, you're a little nervous about something. I think it's just because they don't want to put JJ McCarthy out there until he's right, not just physically, but mentally, or his processing, his ability to integrate himself into this offense, which Carson Wentz has shown the ability to do, but also with classic Carson Wentz plays like a pick six or throwing the ball seemingly away to nobody, except there's 2 defenders there on 2nd and 25. So you like the Chargers defense, but you also like Justin Jefferson. Jordan Addison, who had a big game against Philadelphia. TJ Hawkinson, who continues to be at least a good floor play. And it's the Chargers, so this isn't a defense we're afraid of. And even though Carson Wentz is banged up, he'll make some plays and he'll give up some plays. This might be Jordan Mason's last game as the starter. Again, with 6 teams on bye, he's the lead back. You're putting him in your lineup, hoping for the best here, that Carson Wentz can not just keep them in the game, but maybe even after last week where his mistakes and them not being able to finish drives against the Eagles with touchdowns led to a loss. Well, if they can get a win here, maybe now JJ McCarthy has to be, I don't know, Cease 140% before he plays. But they're 3-3 and in last place in their division. So these games are important. See, we're getting to the part of the season now where we're starting to look ahead to the playoff picture, and the outcome of these kinds of games very important for both of these teams.
Very important for both of these teams and important for the Chargers to keep feeding Aronde Gadsden.
Right. Justin Herbert, we see him 400-yard game. Aronde Gadsden, a monumental game for a rookie tight end. Now, on one hand, Herbert probably doesn't need to air it out unless the Vikings jump out to a lead like the Colts did last week. But on the other hand, against Minnesota last week, Jalen Hurts in the deep passing game for the Eagles came alive. Everything's okay now. So we expect a big game from Herbert. You got to play McConkey, Allen, and Quentin Johnson. And like you said, Cecil, Aronde Gadsden. Now, how much of that was game script? How much of that was the offense going into we need to make a big deficit up mode? I think that because all 3 receivers were healthy last week, it's tight end. The bar is so low. You've got to put Gadsden in. Kimani Vidal also has to be in. I know that he wasn't great last week, but this is still going to be a productive offense. Hassan Haskins has a hamstring injury. He's doubtful. He's not going to play. And again, these are important games. Right now, the Chargers will be tied for the last wild card spot in the AFC. And see, we don't always think of it this way, but when it comes to the end of the season and who makes the playoffs and who doesn't, a game like this can be the difference.
Yeah, this one can be the difference. So Thursday night, always important. We get to Miami Dolphins and Atlanta Falcons, and Miami. Oh, Miami. Everybody's last stand, right?
Yeah. Right?
Isn't that what we think on a weekly basis with this team? Like, how long's Tua going to keep throwing picks and throwing his teammates under the bus, and Mike McDaniel, and like, yeah, all right, just get this thing over with, man.
See, maybe it's because we're going to a wedding this weekend at the inn at the old jail, which, yeah, in New Orleans, they have bed and breakfast in the jail, the old jail. Sometimes you go to a dinner party or something and it's like, oh, is that couple going to be there? Because I feel uncomfortable around them. It just makes me feel awkward because they're not getting along. They're headed for a divorce, but they're still together.
Right. Oh,
It's
yeah.
hard to have that's like Miami right now, right? I mean, we all know where this is headed. And we all just have to, it's Miami. You play the Atlanta defense. I don't know. Where do we go from here? Jalen Waddle's banged up. We're going to see his status, I guess. And he's going to have AJ Terrell on him. So, I mean, it's 6 teams on bye. I guess if he's playing, you have to play him. Remember, Atlanta's defense just dismantled JJ McCarthy, right? That's how he got to be not 130%, was the Atlanta defense. And then we saw what they did to Josh Allen. They made Josh Allen look like an ordinary quarterback. Okay. Now we're going to talk about the Bills, and we're going to talk about what did they do over the bye. But Atlanta can dismantle a quarterback, and Tua is already dismantled. He's already mentally, emotionally dismantled. We saw San Francisco go ball control against Atlanta last week. Now, can they do that with Devin Achane? Achane's obviously in your lineup, but I don't know. It's also Miami's defense has to not get them in a deficit for that to be able to work. Darren Waller's going to be out for this one. I mean, I don't know if that matters. So does anything matter if you're a Miami Dolphins fan? Well, you live down in South Florida. Just enjoy the nice weather.
Yeah, enjoy that and enjoy watching Atlanta run roughshod over your team. Of course, with all the hits that Atlanta can bring to the table.
Yeah, and I think again, Michael Penix throws 38 times and they lose. So it's clear that even though we saw this gunslinger in college, that's not the mode, at least not this year, that the Falcons are going to try to have in any given game, as long as they can dictate this game, and they will. So it's the Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier show. This is Tyler Algier, what the heck, flex week for sure. You got to play Drake London, but you're either hoping that he gets some big plays in before the game gets out of hand, or somehow Miami summons up an offensive effort to keep the passing game in play in the second half. Same thing for Kyle Pitts. He could probably be in your lineup. I could imagine there are teams that have him a better tight end to play than him, but he's still a top 10 tight end. And Darnell Mooney is more of a what the heck flex. You just hope that 50-yard touchdown comes through, again, before this game gets out of hand. At the same time, Cease, we've seen this Atlanta team face a Carolina team that looked like dog poop for 2 weeks. Almost sorry, Joe, that one. And then they beat them 30-0. So Atlanta, sometimes, in that game, Michael Penix looked like he couldn't throw a ball accurately to save his life. So you never know, but I know Bijan Robinson's going to be outstanding. That I do know.
Yes, that is something to know and love. I also know this in our next category of it just doesn't matter. It's Jets and Bengals, but it matters for your fantasy team. Okay, Jets. Can we just have Woody Johnson not do any sort of press conference and throw everything under the bus? I mean, we only had just everything. So, yeah, let's start with the Jets and quickly move on to the Bengals.
Right. It would be nice if we completed a pass. I mean, all the Jets fans are like, I feel you, Woody Johnson. But yeah, the owner and how do these organizations get to these places? Ownership is a big deal. It's the Tyrod Taylor era in 2 quarterback superflex leagues. He has at least not a rock bottom floor. He's a better play than, I don't know, Spencer Rattler, maybe. Breece Hall, we're coming up to one of his last games as a Jet. His last game as a Jet. It doesn't always the trade deadline. Sometimes it's the week before the trade deadline. Against Cincinnati, you got to play Breece Hall. I mean, this is so that's the real story here, right? The Jets defense. Who has been the worst unit in the league? Has it been the Jets offense or the Bengals defense? What happens when you put those together, right? The classic stoppable force and movable object. Mason Taylor, we saw 4 Pittsburgh Steelers touchdowns to tight ends last week, but the offense actually has to function. And without Garrett Wilson, heck, maybe even the Bengals defense can look like a defense this week.
Maybe they can actually play defense, and well, not maybe, but certainly Joe Flacco's going to keep firing passes everywhere, regardless.
Yeah, and the Jets defense, and sees you clued people into this first of anybody, that hey, they're playing for Aaron Glenn. The Jets offense can't play, but the Jets defense is bringing it right now. But without Sauce Gardner, maybe Sauce Gardner. I'm going Massachusetts.
Oh, Boston.
Yeah. So he's got a concussion last week in the fourth quarter. Let's see what happens there. You're going to play T. Higgins either way, but you like T. Higgins even more. You have to think that Gardner's going to match up with Higgins. Jamar Chase, you're moving all around the formation. 23 targets last week. So congratulations if you stuck it out with Chase, or even especially if you bought low on him. And then we're even looking at Noah Fant with his 4 catches. We'll see if Tanner Hudson's back this week. 4 catches and a touchdown last week. And Chase Brown over 100 yards on only 11 carries. Now, this is a really important data point, though. The Steelers' defense was atrocious. And this exact Jets offense looked like they were going to be a breakout offense of the year against the Steelers' atrocious defense in week 1. Last week, Joe Flacco's back. The Bengals' passing attack is back. Was it just the Steelers' defense? Let's see how the Bengals and Flacco do against a Jets defense that has been very good for the last 2 weeks before we make a final call.
Let's see what the Cleveland Browns can do next up. And this week, of course, traveling to face the New England Patriots and Dylan Gabriel, perhaps building some momentum, Sigmund.
Yeah, but Dylan Gabriel's gonna have to do something in this game. Last week they had 3 touchdowns from Quinshon Judkins. One of them was a 46-yard touchdown, and he had touchdowns on 2 other carries. So that's like 22 carries for like 40 yards. So the Miami run defense actually stacked him up. It didn't matter because Miami's offense was so bad. So that's not gonna happen against New England. Drake May's not going to do him any favors. Dylan Gabriel's going to have to do something in this game if Cleveland's going to hang in, unless Cleveland's defense just shuts down Drake May, which, not the way Drake May's playing right now. So you like the New England defense in this one. Of course, Quinshon Judkins is in your lineup, but you see a 2-touchdown lead open up for New England. Now, all of a sudden, Judkins, he's not a true every down back in so much as he's on the field in every mode of the offense. So he's a boom bust play this week, still in your lineup. As far as the passing game goes, Harold Fannin, I guess. Let's see if David Njoku is going to play. Christian Gonzalez is back, the number 1 corner, so that's probably going to blot out Jerry Jeudy. I guess a deep what the heck flex. And yes, some of us are going to have to play deep what the heck flexes this week. Isaiah Bond? I don't know. I do know that I feel a lot more comfortable playing deep what the heck flexes in New England's offense.
Yes, in New England's offense, where Drake May is dealing, and well, Trevion Henderson, probably not the deep what the heck flex you're playing this week. You're just like,
Yeah.
oh, what the heck on the waiver wire.
Yeah, why the heck did I take him in the 4th round? So Drake May, I mean, every week we add another chapter. He's playing like one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league. He's scoring for fantasy leagues like one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league. And now we saw last week 2 good plays. Stephon Diggs in PPR leagues, 7 for 69. Kayshon Boutte only caught 2 passes for 55 yards and a touchdown. In a week with 6 teams on bye, you can play both of them. A couple of tight ends on by that we put in every week: Sam Laporta, Trey McBride. I'm okay with Hunter Henry. I think you're right about confusing Henry and Hooper. So maybe it might be Hooper this week, but Henry's more likely to be that guy. The bigger story here for fantasy is Ramondre Stevenson is rolling now. This offense looks better when he's on the field in their power run mode. Remember, he can do things as a receiver out of the backfield. Cleveland's run defense has been good at times. Devin Achane actually had some success against them last week, the only thing that was successful for Miami's offense. So Ramondre Stevenson now is a strong running back too. New England's a strong team. Team sees not just that we're asking now, like, could they actually be a playoff team? We're asking, can this team actually win the division? But a good test for them coming off of an easy game against Tennessee.
4 games down, 3 games to go in part 1 of the week 8 preview here on the Audible. Giants and Eagles, and oh boy, Giants, and oh boy, Eagles. So what does Vic Fangio have for revenge game? And what does Jackson Dart have to bounce back from one of the most crushing and disappointing losses in recent Giants memory?
Yeah, see, when we see the schedule come out and they'll have a team play and then play the same team 2 weeks later, like, really?
I hate that.
But maybe this time it's actually kind of fun because that game was so charged on Thursday night 2 weeks ago. That was a game that put the Eagles into some turmoil as far as their offense. That was a game that made everybody take notice of the Giants and Jackson Dart and say, maybe there's something here. And like you said last week, he even more confirmed that, even though it was a crushing loss for the Giants. How does he respond emotionally? Of course, you got Cam Scattaboo. You can establish the run against Philadelphia. Wan'Dale Robinson, the 5'8" number 1 receiver, he's in your lineup. Theo Johnson, the speedy tight end who scored from distance last week, he's in your lineup. We'll see about Darius Slayton in this one. Jalen Hyatt getting free, that could have changed the complexion of that game too. If Jackson Dart had a little better deep ball there as a deep what the heck flex, maybe try to get that connection going. And let's just see how it goes this time around in Philadelphia with not only Jackson Dart coming off of a devastating loss, but the Eagles coming off of a game when everything seems to be okay with the pass offense, but just the pass offense.
Right. Are things trending up a little bit there with just the pass offense, and fantasy GMs with Saquon Barkley are like, well,
Right.
Last year was awesome if you had him last year.
Yeah. Yeah, and against his old team, maybe is this a week that the run blocking starts to improve, that you get Barkley to the second level where he can make things happen? Because, Cease, that's always been going back to Penn State. Saquon Barkley, if you did like a run by run and put them all out, be like -1, -2, 1, 0, 43, and we're not seeing those big runs to cancel out some of the runs. Like if he can just get through to the second level, he can get all the way to the end zone. He's just not getting through as often. So can they establish the run here now with Hurts throwing downfield? Will that help loosen things up for Barkley? But you feel better, obviously putting Hurts in, but you feel better about Smith. You feel better about Brown. Even Dallas Goedert didn't score for the first time in 5 weeks last week, but things can open up for him. Maybe he was just a struggle target. Maybe his strong 4 weeks was a product of this team not having the downfield game in the passing game activated, but still that's good, should be good for everybody in the long run. And this is going to be a game that shows us in the long run this year where these teams are when we just saw them 2 weeks ago, and it looked very bad for the Eagles.
Yeah, it looked very bad. We'll see if they could look different. How's Buffalo going to look different? Traveling to face Carolina, we've still got questions about this Buffalo team.
Yeah, and it's good to pivot from Philadelphia to Buffalo because we've seen through some questions, some doubts, some turmoil. Hey, Philly's a good organization. They're going to get it figured out. Is that where we're at with Buffalo? Are they going to get it figured out of the bye? Again, the last time we saw them, Josh Allen looked kind of, I mean, I want to say feeble, but there was a point. See, so it's very rare when you're watching Buffalo Bills Josh Allen that during the game you're like, yeah, he's just not going to be able to get it done today. But that's what happened. Now, was that because Dalton Kincaid was out? Is that because Josh Palmer left the game? Probably not going to play in this one. Dalton Kincaid, we're going to wait hearing about his bulky knee coming out of the bye. Assuming he'll be back, he'll be in your lineup. Khalil Shakir will be in your lineup against Carolina. Can Keon Coleman get going? This is going to be a big week for Keon Coleman because this was supposed to be second year breakout for Keon Coleman, embracing new roles, adding new value to the offense. It hasn't happened. That has to be a point of emphasis. Or maybe Cease, the point of emphasis was just more James Cook. Maybe the point of emphasis was we're just going to continue to lead with James Cook. That's what gets this offense on schedule. That's what establishes the physical identity of this offense. So this is going to be an interesting game. Carolina's defense has been improving, especially against the run. So what was the prescription for Buffalo coming off of a low point going into the bye? That's going to be fascinating because not only will we see some fantasy outcome Cease, but we'll see their self-scouting and their idea of how to fix it. So this is some fascinating stuff here. I think that Buffalo is a team that in Josh Allen sees, we may look back and say week 1, there was that crazy comeback against Baltimore. He had a spike week for fantasy football, but the fantasy quarterback we saw after that, that's the actual Josh Allen, like a 22, 23 point, not a 28 point average player. Or maybe he comes roaring out of the bye against Carolina. So again, a lot of fascinating questions here. We're not asking who's going to start for Carolina quarterback. We got the red rifle back.
Yes, we do. I often question with the Bills of like, are they okay with that? But of course, they've had Sean McDermott as their coach for way too long. So it'll fail again. And then maybe they fire McDermott. I have no idea. Let's talk about Andy Dalton back and the running back by committee that the Panthers are going to trot out there at home against the Bills. We'll see what kind of a puncher's chance they've got.
And they do because, hey, it's Andy Dalton, right?
Right.
And this is a game where you're going to lead with the run. You're going to lead with Rico Dowdle and Chuba Hubbard, alternating series. Maybe Dowdle gets the first series. I don't know. You play Dowdle for sure as a running back 2 flex. If you like the Panthers' chances in this one, Chuba Hubbard is a flex. If you don't like their chances, he's still a what the heck flex because he's going to get every other series. It'll be interesting if they do fall behind in this game to see who's the running back in the 2-minute drill mode of the offense, which would actually probably function better with Andy Dalton than Bryce Young anyway. So there's still some questions, but as far as fantasy, Dowdle's in. Hubbard will tell me the rest of your roster, and I'll tell you whether he should be in. Tedero McMillan is in. He's not going to be facing Sauce Gardner this week. Will Andy Dalton be better for him? Xavier Legette, probably in. He was producing, scored a touchdown with Bryce Young, also made some key catches for Andy Dalton to ice away that win against the Jets last week. Jalen Coker. Well, I mean, I'm not putting Jalen Coker in my lineup. He might not even be on the roster. Yeah, he's on my rosters. I love him. But at the same time, we saw Andy Dalton. He was the one that lit the fuse for Adam Thielen last year and showed Bryce Young, like, hey, sometimes just take the layup. Taking the layup is okay. Bryce Young, Jalen Coker, hopefully not splitting that slot receiver role 3 ways like he did last week and a second week back. So I'm talking too much about Jalen Coker. See, I'm not going to say I'm a cokehead. I've never been a cokehead. There's no truth to those rumors.
Yeah, that's definitely got fantasy gyms up in a tizzy with Jalen Coker. You can tell who the Coker truthers are out there, Bloom,
Mm-hmm.
and well, that is your specialty. Bears and Ravens is your specialty now because with the Bears side of things, like, can Caleb Williams play better? I know again the Saints, the ground game. DeAndre Swift feels like the old trustworthy jalopy. Is it just me where
Mm-hmm.
it's like I have a commuter car?
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate my commuter car. I'm pretty much unsure if I'm going to make it to work every day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, so is it like that with DeAndre Swift? Is like he's banged up during the week of practice, 124 yards on 19 carries. All right, I'll keep riding DeAndre Swift until those wheels fall off.
Yeah, and we'll watch the practice reports, but the good news is that the Ravens going into the bye were really having trouble stopping the run. So this is a team that what Chicago wants to do on offense, which is just lead with the run, take stuff off of Caleb Williams' plate, more rush attempts than pass attempts. Baltimore's defense should be rolling out the red carpet for that. So Kyle Monangai is absolutely a what the heck flex this week. Caleb Williams, I want to know if Lamar Jackson's starting. So we're jumping to the Baltimore side prematurely. Didn't practice on Monday. Now, if Lamar Jackson is starting, then Jackson can get the Bears out of run mode by putting points on the board at home. And now Caleb Williams has to do something. And now at least he has a high ceiling for fantasy. But if they don't end up in that mode, he has a low ceiling and even has a low floor. You still have to play Rome, Odunze, and DJ Moore. But again, if you're playing those guys, you're rooting for Lamar Jackson to play here and you're rooting for Lamar Jackson to play well. So they have to open up the pass offense. Otherwise, Luther Burden has had some productive games. His role's not changing. Still under 30% of the snaps. Can't play him. Colston Loveland could start this week. Cole Kmet left last week with the back injury. But again, unless it turns into a shootout, I mean, Colston Loveland is a what the heck tight end play this week. Can he show enough to establish lasting value? I don't know. Not on a team that wants to run first. But again, to know whether they're going to run second, third, fourth, 28th, 35th, we got to know who the quarterback's going to be for the Ravens.
Right. And because of that, Sigmund, we're recording full disclosure Wednesday morning. What do we even say about the Ravens
Yeah. Well,
coming out of the bye?
right? Hope you don't fall to 1-6. I mean, as a Steelers fan, I guess you do. But and is it and see even if Lamar Jackson's not starting, is it Cooper Rush or Tyler Huntley? Because Cooper Rush the offense was going backwards with him. Okay, so it's probably Tyler Huntley. I know this. So see, when we're asking all these questions, you know what the answer is? Derrick Henry. Right?
Yeah, should be.
What is it? The shoot? Is that what it is in rodeo, Cease?
Coming out of shoot number 9.
You want him you want him ready coming out of the bye, right? Right? You want Derrick Henry, you want him seeing red coming out of the bye. And it doesn't matter if it's Lamar Jackson or Tyler Huntley or Cooper Rush. That's what you lead with. And we've seen Chicago have trouble stopping the run this year. Remember, Henry, with no real passing game to speak of, had 120 plus yards because of the wind against the Rams. So I love Henry this week. I guess you're going to play Zay Flowers. No matter who the quarterback is, you're more excited if it's Lamar Jackson. And then we're just watching the Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely split. Again, Mark Andrews' name coming up a lot in trade rumors. Do the trade calculus change if they're 2-5 versus 1-6? It shouldn't, because the Steelers aren't going to, So anyway, I think that's the Ravens' playoff chances at my door.
All right, that's a wrap for part 1 of the Week 8 preview. He's Sig, I'm Cease. We are the Audible, everyone. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned and stay frosty.